Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of MMA Vision Analysis. This is the third part of a three-part series. Obviously, talking about Justin Gaethje and Gaethje's next potential fight. We talked about Max Holloway. We talked about Michael Chandler. This one, we have to talk about the one, the only Dustin Poirier. Obviously, this would be the fight that put the two together for the third time. Dustin did talk about this fight a couple months back. We're going to talk about this fight, the potential of this fight happening. Before getting started, make sure to like, subscribe, click that notification to get all of this that is new from this channel, your channel, the one and only MMA Vision Analysis as well. I'm glad to see Justin Gaethje back doing some media work, talking about next potential fight. And in all honesty, I don't think Justin Gaethje lost much of his stock with the loss to Max Holloway. Max Holloway is a legend, and so is Justin Gaethje. I think that Gaethje is far from finished. Obviously, I'm yet to see the guy's form after the knockout, but most certainly entertainment factor is always there when Justin Gaethje fights. Every time Gaethje fights, it's an event. Every time Gaethje fights, the fight turns heads, obviously, and gets plenty of attention. That's only speaking of Gaethje. Now, when we talk about Gaethje in the lightweight division was the number one contender prior to UFC 300, where he lost his BMF title to Max Holloway. We talked about the possibility of the rematch and redemption and how that could perhaps serve as a number one contender matchup. And personally, that's the fight that makes most sense. That's just what I think, obviously, for both the gentlemen. And we talked about the Michael Chandler fight. Here, we're talking about a fight that could potentially put the two together for the third time. Obviously, we're talking about Dustin Poirier here. Poirier just lost to Islam Makhachev. Obviously, Gaethje just lost to Holloway. So somewhat similar form, I guess you could say that. Even though I still look at Gaethje as a top contender in that lightweight division, and I still look at him as a true contender for that title. And I just don't think that Gaethje's done. That's why I think perhaps the fight that's closest to reality and the one that makes sense for the division the most is the one that would put Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje again, not only for a number one contender matchup, but perhaps a BMF title included. That being said, Dustin Poirier expressed his interest in fighting one more time before it's all said and done in terms of his career, and he talked about fighting Gaethje in Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken, a couple months back. And obviously, Gaethje is not one to say no to a fight. Obviously, Justin Gaethje is welcoming to any idea in the lightweight division at this point. The guy just wants to get back in there. But if I were matchmaker and if I were somebody who's in Gaethje's corner, we want to be more strategic where we're at right now. UFC 300 was not so strategic, but now we have to make more strategic moves, and perhaps taking on Max Holloway, welcoming the guy to the lightweight division would be a smart idea, not only for Gaethje, but for the division, and perhaps even for Holloway as well, in a way, just because he just fought the guy. He has the confidence from knocking him out. And it was just a phenomenal performance from Holloway, all the entire duration of the fight, all 25 minutes. He got knocked out like in the last 3 seconds or something, the last second Gaethje did. That's why I think that fight perhaps makes more sense for everyone. But the fight against Dustin Poirier, I believe, is perhaps the fight that's the second furthest away from reality. I believe that the Michael Chandler fight is perhaps the one that's furthest away from reality. But in all honesty, all of these guys are somewhat on, let's say, similar forms of all of them combined, whether it be Poirier, Gaethje, and Holloway. and Chandler. All of these guys coming off losses, and really you can put any of them together and that would make sense. But we just hate to see redundant fights, and obviously we want to see some newcomers in that lightweight division, which there will be newcomers, the likes of a Ruffy and even a Bruno Silva, the guy that fought at lightweight last time around, the featherweight, and perhaps at some point in the near future we're going to see Omar Nurmagomedov, that's the current champion in Bellator, perhaps fighting the UFC. I believe we're bound to see this guy come to the UFC and fight in that lightweight division as soon as Islam Makhachev is ready to relinquish that title, that is, which I think that's going to happen as soon as Bilal Muhammad loses his title. I believe that's when Islam is going to perhaps step up in weight to fight in that welterweight division, which I think is perhaps inevitable for Islam, our current champion in the lightweight division. Win, lose, or draw against Tsarukyan. Perhaps my calculations are a bit off, but what I'm trying to say here is that we need a shake up in that lightweight division. We need to see some new fighters competing for the top, because all of these fights are getting redundant. All these guys have fought each other at least once or twice in some cases. Even our champion here, he's faced Tsarukyan already, but obviously you have to do what you have to do, and keep putting guys together for rematches. And in the case of this fight here, the potential third fight between Poirier and Gaethje, I don't know how much. Well, obviously it makes no sense for the division, because Poirier expresses his disinterest in fighting after the fight, which is supposedly his last fight, but he said that a couple times, the Louisiana native. And also we have Gaethje, who I think is still somewhat in the mix. He just needs to find the proper matchup, and I think the proper matchup is the Max Holloway fight, because it makes sense for the division, makes sense for both gentlemen, because I think that's a great bounce back for both guys, and for them to be in talks for a title shot. Because in all honesty, at the very top of the lightweight division right now, you just see a bunch of guys that are probably, I don't want to say 1 foot out the door. Most certainly a guy like Poirier's 1 foot out the door. Other fighters express interest. Chandler wants Conor. Islam has obviously Tsarukyan, and Islam has 1 foot out the door in terms of the lightweight division. He expressed interest in fighting at welterweight before Bilal won the title, but obviously his friend winning the title prevented him from doing so. And also we have obviously Justin Gaethje, who's looking for a dance partner, sort of saying, I think the fight to make is him, Max Holloway. For Poirier, maybe you can fight at Renato Moicano, for your final fight. I don't know, but I don't know how much. It would definitely be a fight to watch, don't get me wrong, but it just does not benefit the division in any sort of way. I mean, if you want to benefit the division, then put a guy against Poirier who is an uprising opponent. But, bring the guys together for a third time, I just kind of think it's kind of redundant. And I don't think this fight will happen. I could be wrong, obviously, but the fight to make for Justin Gaethje is definitely Max Holloway. Rematch welcoming the ladder to the lightweight division, number one contender matchup, as well as BMF title included. If you made it this far, appreciate you for sticking around. Thank you for tuning in for our 3-part series on Justin Gaethje. And please like, subscribe for more.